You're listening to Emerson Whitner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Emerson Whitner, and this is your NXT audio update for Wednesday, November 11th, 2015. 11/11/15, a date that only comes once a century, like every other date. First of all, I do want to pat myself on the back that I was the first wrestling audio podcast that broke the story about Seth Rollins last week, so hooray for coincidental timing. But on to the show of NXT. We kick things off with a match that didn't actually get started. Ty Dillinger came out for a match with Baron Corbin. I should point out, when looking at Ty Dillinger, I know he's got the perfect 10 gimmick, but Sawyer Fulton and Angelo Dawkins need to sit somewhere and realize that Ty Dillinger is not any better off than he was when he was teaming with Jason Jordan. In fact, he's probably worse off than he is back then. So I hope Fulton and Dawkins are watching this guy and realizing, hey, I think we better stick together for a little bit longer. Corbin was introduced as hailing from Kansas City. I don't know if he's always been introduced as being from Kansas City, but somehow it just doesn't seem appropriate. I don't know what an appropriate city for Baron Corbin would be, but Kansas City just sounds wrong. Before the match could even start, Apollo Crews ran in and attacked Baron. Crews is quite upset that Corbin ran in and cost him the championship last week in the match against Finn Balor, and Crews tore apart Baron Corbin. Corbin kept trying to make a comeback, but Apollo tore him apart, and Corbin eventually fled, running away, living to fight another day. And Ty Dillinger just kind of slithered off into Neverland. We got a nice random 6-person intergender tag match up next, as the women's champion Bayley and the Hype Bros, Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder, teamed up to battle Alexa Bliss, Blake, and Murphy. Bayley got a healthy reaction coming out, but not quite the same reaction she had about a month ago. And of course, it didn't help that her partners were the Hype Bros, who, when they came out, got some pity applause, which, albeit, is better than silence. I did note that it was only 1 year ago when Blake and Murphy were the designated jobber tag team on NXT, going absolutely nowhere, and now they're former champions. Just as the match began, a fire got lit under the butts of the audience as they got very loud in their chants for the babyfaces, chanting all three babyfaces were hyped and all three heels were not hyped. The babyfaces actually ran wild for quite a while until the heels cut off Zack Ryder to get the heat. Mojo eventually got the hot tag and went crazy on both male heels by himself. He had the match won, but Alexa broke up the pin, so Bayley attacked her. Alexa then snuck over and stole the NXT Women's title and ran off with it. Blake and Murphy then tried cheating by using the ropes for leverage to get the pin, but Bayley kicked their hands apart, and Murphy got all up in Bayley's face, so Bayley laid out the large Murphy with a Bayley-to-belly suplex, and the faces won with the assisted Rough Rider, while Bayley gave chase to Alexa to get her title back. The Ascension were backstage and accepted Jason Jordan and Chad Gable's challenge to a tag team match, which will happen next week. Meanwhile, Nia Jax was walking backstage when Eva Marie, of all people, walked up and pulled her aside for a meeting. That may turn into the weirdest team in wrestling history. Big, huge Nia Jax and Eva Marie. They did show the cover of Weekly Pro Wrestling in Japan when they had Asuka on the cover. And then backstage, another part of backstage, Apollo Crews cut a promo, quite irate about what happened with Baron Corbin. And he said he wants to get his hands on Corbin, and when he does, he vows to break Baron. Nia Jax destroyed Deonna up next. Deonna is one of those girls that look exactly the same. NXT has like half a dozen girls who are all pretty. They're all brunettes. You know, they all look very similar. And if you told me that it was just the same girl with a different name every week, I'd believe you. And I'm pointing out this is Nia Jax's third NXT match in the last 6 weeks, which is a step up from when she was unable to find the arena for, 2 months. Nia destroyed Deonna with a body slam into a Samoan drop, which, as I say every time Nia wrestles, that would make a much better finisher than her actual finisher. I don't know why she does, cooler moves as setups than she does as a finish, but she does. And eventually she won with her standing spine buster and a leg drop. That move is really not that cool, especially compared to literally everything else she does. During the commercial break, I assumed that someone came out with a shovel to pick Deonna off the mat, because that poor girl just got squished. Next week, they announced Nia Jax versus Carmella. Poor Carmella. They mentioned Mr. Regal's neck surgery. Hope he gets better. And then we got a wacky angle, an angle so wacky, I thought they were bringing back NXT Redemption for a minute. Bayley caught up with Alexa Bliss. Alexa had ran away with the title and gone into the photo room and was taking pictures with the championship belt. And Bayley was still chasing her, which shows that Bayley's either really slow or something. But so Bayley caught her, but Alexa ran away but dropped the belt, so Bayley got her belt back. When Bayley left the photo area, she walked right into Nia Jax. Nia just stared at her, which gave Alexa the chance to attack Bayley from behind and lay Bayley out. Alexa bent over to pick up the title, but instead Nia beat her to it and picked it up, and she stared at Alexa. Little teeny tiny fairy-sized Alexa Bliss ran away, and Nia just dropped the belt on Bayley and walked away with a little smirk on her face. Dash and Dawson became the 8th or 9th NXT Tag Team Champions by defeating the Vaudevillains. The NXT Tag Team title is always a weird one to count how many champions there were, because technically there were 8 reigns, but you could easily make the argument for 9. Because the first NXT Tag Team Champions were Adrian Neville and Oliver Gray. However, Oliver Gray got injured. They gave credit to the Wyatt family, but still, Oliver got injured, and Bo Dallas stepped in for 2 weeks as the interim champion just to lose the belts. So you could consider that a second title reign, or you could also consider it just ending the one reign. I'd have to actually see what WWE considers in the lineage there. I should point out that in the almost 2 years of the WWE Network, this is only the second title change on a normal, quote-unquote, NXT show since the network started. The first being the last NXT tag title change when Blake and Murphy defeated the Lucha Dragons. So about 2 weeks ago, I was reading the results of an NXT house show, and not only listed Samoa Joe as a heel, but also listed Dash and Dawson as the champions. And since that was before this match was even booked, I was like, what is this person talking about? But, it became pretty obvious quite quickly that, Dash and Dawson were going to win the titles in the tapings. So, go figure, leave it to house show results to spoil these things to me. They built up this match that the challengers scored an upset win in the second round of the Dusty Rhodes Classic back in September, so they were looking to win 2 in a row. Not mentioned is the fact that they lost a number 1 contenders match to Enzo and Colin like 2 or 3 weeks ago. However, that got ignored, and they just, now are getting a title shot. They got the heat on Aiden English for a long time working on his knee, including slamming the knee into the ring post. English did go to the Ricky Steamboat School of Wrestling, where he kept doing a little something to show everyone he's still in it, but he just couldn't get himself to the corner for the tag. Dawson hit a really nice slingshot suplex, shades of Tully Blanchard, but it was just a 2 count. Honestly, that move is still really cool, and it should still be a finish now. But like the springboard stunner, it's just a near fall. Gotch eventually got the hot tag and went all gentlemanly on his foes. He did make the foolish move of tagging English back in too quickly, as he was looking to finish off the heels. But alas, Aiden got chop blocked, and the heel sent Gotch out of the ring and into the steps. Dash and Dawson Pillmanized Aiden's knee without a chair. That sounds weird, but if you saw it, you knew what I was talking about. One of them grabbed Aiden's leg, they were all on the mat, and held it, while the other one came off the middle ropes with a stomp to the knee. So it looked weird, but if you saw it, you knew what I was saying. Finally, I wrote Gotch got slapped on a knee bar, but actually Dash slapped on a knee bar. Actually, Dawson slapped on a knee bar. I'll get it right eventually. There's only three choices, right? Let's try that again. Dawson slapped on a knee bar on Aiden English, who scratched and clawed to get to the ropes, but he just couldn't get there, and he had to tap out. We have new champions. The Kings are dead. Long live the new Kings of NXT. After a commercial break, Dash and Dawson cut a promo saying they've been fighting for this moment for the last 12 years. Interesting to note, since they've only been teammates for barely a year now. Next week, in addition to Nia Jax versus Carmella, is Jordan and Gable versus The Ascension. Also is Bayley versus Alexa for the women's title. And that led us to the actual main event of the show, a Samoa Joe promo. As noted last week, Joe appeared to make the save for Finn Balor, but instead, he stabbed the NXT champion in the back. Like an awful, evil man that he is. Samoa Joe said that he did things like a man. He came into NXT and he earned a title match for being undefeated for 3 months, but instead of going right for the belt, he agreed to be Finn Balor's partner in the Dusty Rhodes Classic. Joe proved that there was action behind his words and that he was a man of action by destroying all the competition and winning the tournament for him and his partner. Joe then asked for a title match, and he was insulted by being put in a battle royal. He noted that Finn had agreed to the title match, but allowed Mr. Regal to make a battle royal and thus put no action behind his words. Joe stated that when he entered NXT, he was such a star that he should have automatically been given a title shot, which brought out Finn Balor and a boatload of referees. The refs did a great job of holding them apart until Joe, in the move of the century, literally threw one of the referees into Finn, and while everyone was all confused as to what the heck to do, Joe got through the defenses and choked Finn unconscious with a Coquina clutch. And Joe then stood over the champion, picked up his championship belt, and dropped it on Finn before walking out. And that does it from NXT. Another good show on the road to London and TakeOver. But until next week, this is Emerson. Sayonara. Adios. Hasta luego. Goodbye.
You're listening to Emerson Whitner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.